Hello, and welcome to Wilaker, a Journeyers podcast. I'm Will Abels, and this is my story.
Left home, gone coast to coast, in a hybrid car with a bag of clothes. Back on the wagon, back on the road. Would you have my back when I'm all alone? On a wing and a prayer, all out of favors. Hope to get $1 and a smile out of stranger. As the story is told and the plot unfolds, we laugh not to cry, but it's not a joke. No, it's not a joke. It's not a joke.
Welcome back to Wilaker, Chapter 15. Some of you may have thought, oh no, he's not going to finish. Don't worry. I always finish. I just need a little break. I just got too many projects, and I basically have like Tuesday and Wednesday to record this, and then I'm like, if I don't do it those 2 days, it's just not going to happen on Thursday, Friday, because I'm traveling again. And I just haven't really been in a position to go back in and tell my story. And also, I mean, something that's kind of cool is that, you know, I'm in June now. It's been a year since a lot of this happened. I mean, today is June 16th, which means I would have been in Denver, I believe, at this exact time, which is pretty cool, which means, you know, it's a year later, and like, look at all the things that have happened in that year. No, I wasn't quite in Denver. I was making my way there. I was getting close. I was making my way actually, no, yeah, I would have been out appropriate. I would have been out finding myself at Craters of the Canyon Moon, which I talked about previous episode. I would have been drying out on this day last year, which is great. It's just nice to hear, because today I'm 321 days sober, coming up on a year. It's exciting. You know, I don't feel any type of way about it, but it is something I'm looking forward to, and I'm proud of myself for getting that far. And I don't know, there's a lot happening. I mean, on Friday, I'm headlining Dynasty Typewriter. Next week, I'm headlining The Lost Church. That came together from doing San Francisco Sketchfest in January. Also, Dynasty Typewriter came together from San Francisco Sketchfest. Thank you, Iffy. And this is a fun one, and I think all roads led to this moment, but I'm going to be taping for OnlyFans TV next Tuesday at the Den Theater in Chicago. And, you know, yeah, is it the recording I want to do as opposed to like a special for Netflix or a late night spot on Fallon? Yeah, you know, it's not. It's in my top 5 because there's really only 5 things you can do. But it's not Fallon. It's not Netflix. But you know what? It's my first real TV credit, and it'll be coming to you on, if you have a Samsung TV, you can check it out at some point. But the whole point is that this time last year, you know, I'm drying out and feeling really good, and I feel really good now as well. But this is the kind of interesting. So, like, when I have taken breaks before, you know, this is a little different. Like, what we're talking about last year is I got sober for 5 months, fell off the wagon, decided I wasn't going to be sober, and then I fell into the old habits. And one of those old habits is that, you know, I could always break a bender, and I would take, like, you know, between 3 and 10 days off, whatever it was, maybe a month off, and I'd be like, oh, I got this, and I go back to it. And that's sort of what happened leading into Denver. I took those 3 days off, maybe 4 days, between the last night in Boise and then going into Craters of the Canyon Moon and Bear Lake, and then I got to Denver, and if you remember from last episode, I was like seeing spots, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on, and so then I had a beer. And it was probably withdrawal. It had something to do with withdrawal. Probably had something to do with like the circulation of my legs from just driving for too long. I wasn't eating very well. I wasn't drinking enough water. You know, it's probably a combination of things. But I have a beer, and I get to my friends JD and Jen's place, and you know they're funny because they were like, "Oh, we have some NA beers in the fridge," and I was like, "Oh no, I'm drinking again." And because I'd already had a beer earlier, I was like, all right, well, this little break is over. And, you know, the goal was not to quit drinking at that point. The goal was to show everyone that I could drink like a normal person, which I have learned since I cannot do. And so we sat, we had a couple beers, like, like 2 beers, 3 beers, you know what I mean? Nothing crazy. And then I went to bed with the goal of managing my drinking the entire time I was in Denver. Also, I do want to say right now, Denver is going to be 2 chapters because it is broken up with a very specific moment that happens, and there's not much left. There's only a few chapters left of this story, and I will take it up to the point that I do get sober because I think that last month back in Nashville is important to talk about, even though it wasn't technically part of the tour. That last month is like the moment and that was so crucial to me getting to the point that I'm at now. Anyway, so get a great night's sleep. The first show I have in Denver actually wasn't in Denver. It was in Greeley, Colorado. I was featuring for my friend Mike Stanley. I was super excited about it. I knew Mike a little bit. I had done his show Thick Skin, which is every Monday at Denver Comedy Works. One of my favorite shows in the country. I love when I do it. I did it last time I was in town. I'm hopefully doing it again in the fall. Fantastic show. And Mike is going to be coming back to Boonesboro, Maryland to headline at the Hall in August. So make sure you keep your eyes out for that. We'll also be in D.C., but we're still figuring that out. But anyway, so this is my first time really working with Mike and getting to spend some time getting to know him better. And that was something that was important to me in Denver because back in 2022, I had a bit of you don't realize how bad your drinking's getting, even though there's all these telltale signs and moments of I got so drunk at the Denver Comedy Lounge, I almost fell off stage. And instead of that being the wake up and get this shit together, I just was like, oh, it's the altitude. And I did have an ungodly amount of sake, which I don't drink often, which I don't drink often. And I know that left a rift with a lot of friends I had in Denver because they just, I don't know, maybe they felt disrespected. However they felt, they weren't wrong, and so I don't know how much stuff got back to Mike. At that point, I was building a relationship with Ben Roy, and, now I have a relationship with Adam, Kate, and Holland, guys I've really respected and always wanted to work with. Now I'm fortunate that I do get to work with them, and Mike Stanley was also on that list. So this was important to me to just kind of talk to him and see where I stood and all that kind of stuff. And I was excited to work with him. I think he's funny as hell, and he's someone that I think deserves more accolades than he gets, and I hope that those are coming his way, and I think they are. It seems like he's got, he just opened for Josh Johnson while he was in town, and that's one thing I love about Josh is he seems to be like, hey, I have a lot of very funny friends around me that deserve a little spotlight. Let me keep giving that to them. So I hang out during the day. I just don't really remember doing much. I know one of the days I hung out with my good friend Korey David, and we just kind of caught up. And there was either Thursday or Friday. I also, one of the ways I was making income on the road was I was doing little Instagram ads for Recess Therapy and for Willie's Remedy, THC drinks, and for, Thesis might have been a thing at that point. Thesis was it's basically a Joe Rogan bullshit supplement that, they branded it better than Rogan does. They make it, they used porn stars to talk about how, you're watching too much porn and that's from ADHD, so you need to take Thesis to whatever. I don't know. I don't have a relationship with them. I don't give a shit. Apparently some people really like it better than their ADHD medicine. I didn't notice that much of a difference. So anyway, I just remember I had to record for Recess, do a video. I would get $50. And, I had a lot of those coming in at that time because Recess was really trying to push with creators and stuff like that. And it's not really important to what I'm talking about. It was just that I remember finally being sober enough and clear enough that I felt I can actually get stuff done again, And so I got that done, and I went and hung out with Korey. And I don't remember if that was Thursday or Friday, but it happened, and it was lovely catching up with Korey. There's really not a huge part of the story there. I just wanted to add him in there because I love Korey David, and he's a good friend of mine, and I just had to acknowledge that we hung out. But anyway, so we're at Thursday, and I'm going to go up to Greeley, Colorado, with Mike Stanley. We're going to perform at Stellas, and I should be back there in October. We'll see. But it was really cool. I picked up Mike downtown, and we just got to know each other. We got to chat. I kind of pitched him my idea that I was like, I'm kind of thinking about moving to Denver. He was very positive about that. He was like, I think we'd be lucky to have you. We'd love to have you. And the next couple days went so well that I really was like, oh, it's time to go to Denver. But the only reason I'm hesitant about doing that now is I just think the guys I know there, they've made it. They're nationally touring headliners. I'm still doing one-nighters. That's not really sustainable financially. The positive is I'd be in Denver, a city that I absolutely love, surrounded by nature, surrounded by trees, but surrounded by mountains and national parks and all this kind of stuff. but I think I need to be in a city around more industry, like New York or LA or Atlanta, or I'd like to say Nashville, but I think that door is closed if you're following me on Instagram. But anyway, I had a great time talking to Mike. It was very positive, and we go. It's a small show. It's a bar show essentially. It was great. I really enjoyed the show. And then afterwards, Mike and I sat there, and one thing I did that again made me think, oh, I have control of my drinking, is I had a couple of beers, but like 2, right? And then Mike and I were going to do shots together, and then I was like, I'd love to do a shot with you, but I have to drive us back. And just being responsible, as small as like, no shit, you shouldn't do a shot then drive back. But the way my brain was like, I'm trying to trick it's not even my brain, it's the alcohol being like, no, you're fine, you can do this, you got this, like you're in control. Look at that, you said no to a shot, and yeah. But we had a great show, and I drive Mike back, and I ended up spending some time with him as well. So I do believe, I think that was on Thursday night, and then Friday I did this recess ad, and then I hung out with Korey, and we had a great time catching up. And then that night I did Don't Tell, and I was getting after it drinking-wise. I met up with my good friend Mac, and Mac was a bartender at Jane's Hideaway here in Nashville, and we found out, like, I got on the road, and then Mac moved to Denver with his fiancée Paige, and they found out Jane's was closing. Jane's Hideaway is Nashville for me. It was Nashville for me. It was my go-to when I was drinking. It was my go-to when I was getting sober. It was my safe spot. I had a few of these around the country. Silverlight Tavern was that for me my last couple years in New York. This was my home. I got to know the bartenders very well. I got to know the owner very well. I loved the music, everything. So finding out Jane's was closing really left a sour note for me with Nashville, and I didn't know what I was going back to, because my safe space was now going to be gone. So Mac met up with us to see the show, and JD and I and Mac all just met at Don't Tell. And then I have one of those sets that you just go, oh, I'm so good. Like, I just annihilate. Like, I was, I was riffing, I was doing all the things. And it was also, again, an issue was that the comedy wasn't being affected by my drinking. Towards the end of it, it was very seriously affecting my performance. And then when I got back in the drinking, it wasn't affecting comedy at all. So I wasn't having the same excuses to quit as I did before, and that was a problem. And Don't Tell Denver, this has nothing to do with the company or the show, but it went so well that your brain is just like, I don't need to quit, So I crush that. The 3 of us go out afterwards, and we go to a bar, we have a good time, and then JD and I have just the most batshit insane Uber ride home. I pride myself with how little batshit insane moments I have while driving for Uber. One time I almost got his pancake by a fire truck. And, every once in a while I'll yell at a car because they're doing something stupid. But this guy gets in, we get in this car, it's a Tesla, and the guy's like, yeah, I just left the strip club. There's a stripper that's in love with me. I'm going to go back and pick her up after you guys. He's like, I'm having a hell of a night. I hope you guys are kind of normal. And we were like, okay, well, he doesn't sound like anything about what you just said was normal. I mean, it's fairly early. It's not strip club late, And he's like, yeah, the first guy he was going to kill himself. So I had to talk him off the ledge. And we were like, cool. We're not going to do that, we promise. The next guy had just gotten out of prison, had nowhere to go. So he's just having in his defense, he's having a bit of a rough night. But this guy was just weird enough that I was like, I feel like this is kind of your day-to-day. I feel like this is kind of what you walk into. You wake up every day and you're like, let's see what kind of weirdos we can bring about to ourselves. So as we're driving, we're getting closer to JD's place, and the driver turns and he's like, hey, you want, I forget what Tesla calls it, but there's this thing that they can go 0 to 60 in like a second, whatever it is. And he's like, you guys want to see that? And I'm drunk, and I'm like, well, yeah, absolutely. You just told us about your new stripper girlfriend and your new best friend who's a criminal, and you're also kind of a saint because you saved a person from killing themselves. And so he's like, all right, heads back. So we put our heads back against the seat, and then he just, this thing can fly. And I hate Elon Musk, but Teslas are pretty cool. And that's just how it goes, We can't just enjoy, we can't have nice things like healthcare, but at least we have a trillionaire, That's what when I woke up today, I said, you know what? I don't need to get my back checked out. I don't need to check out what's going on with my stomach. But I'm thankful that the world has a trillionaire. So then the next day, Mac and I meet up again, and we go and we explore Golden. And this is great because I don't know his fiance super well. So it was me and Mac and his fiance Paige and their dog. And Mac and I were just broing out. Like, we were really looking for a cold plunge. And you know you've gone too deep down the well when you're calling a river a cold plunge. And we were calling the river a cold plunge. We tend to do that. I've met up with Mac several times since. We need to stop doing this to ourselves. We need to stop calling rivers cold plunges. It's a plight, and we deserve to be put in prison for doing said things. They're rivers, they're nature, they need to be respected. But we have a great day. We're hanging around Golden. It's a beautiful little part. It's outside of Denver. It's a place I've gone back since. And, we're grabbing some drinks. And that was the thing that was really nice is like, I don't have this sense of anxiety now with not drinking when I'm in public settings. But at that time, it was just nice to take that equation out. Because there's times you're sitting at the bar, even when you're sober, and when I'm having any beer, where you just go, God, I wish I could just drink like a normal person. And in that moment, hanging out with Paige and Mac at the bar that we were at the restaurant, it was just so nice to be able to have a couple beers, not worry about it, and just that part of the equation, like the anxiety of that, was taken out, and we could just enjoy each other's company and chat and get to know each other better and all that kind of stuff. Because, Mac was also always on the other side of the bar, so this was another chance for us to hang out outside, outside the bar, essentially, by going to another bar. But I will say, I saw Mac last time I was in town a couple months ago, and I went and saw him at his new bar in Denver, and I sat down, I had an NA beer, and he was on the other side, and he just went, God, this just feels right. And he was 100% accurate. Like, just catching up with him, that was the scenario. Like, I don't want to ever see his legs again, and I don't think he needs to ever see my legs again. But that's just, it's just something silly that happened. So the next day, so that night, so that night, we're on Saturday now, and I had another show at a brewery, and again, fantastic show. I forget. I'd have to look up the name of the brewery again, but it was through Rotating Taps, and they're another production company in Denver. They do a great job, and it was another killer show. And I'm like having a couple of beers, and I'm getting along with all the other comics. And again, they were even like, "Why don't you move to Denver? Why don't you come here?" And there's a certain sect of comics that you talk to, and when you talk about taking the next steps, going from a small scene, in my case, back to a big scene, but in general, going from a small scene to a big scene, and you're talking about New York or LA, they can read you quickly and know that Austin isn't an option. And I was fortunate that a lot of the people I met in Denver could tell, based on my vibe, that Austin was not an option for me. And it's not something I'm fine never performing there. I'd love to do Cap City one day, but if it didn't happen, I wouldn't give a fuck. But I am going to be headlining Houston, which is a different city, in a different part of Texas. And that's going to be coming up in October. But again, great show. Nothing bad happened, right? So finally on Sunday, I have a day off. And like I said, when I take a break, I convince myself that I have control of my drinking. And so far it has been better. Like, I cut myself off on Thursday night with Mike. Korey and I think had one or two together, and then I went and did Don't Tell, and we were Ubering around, so it didn't really matter. Saturday night, same situation where I Ubered there and came back, and really wasn't a big deal. I'm not drinking too early yet, but then Sunday I had a day off with absolutely no obligations, and this is where chaos starts to slip back in, because I'm down in JD and Jen's basement. And I'm not aware now. I don't know if they know this was happening. I would be shocked if they didn't. But I found a cooler that JD had taken for golf or something. And there's just a bunch of warm Miller Lights. And I'm just kind of down there hanging out, watching movies and stuff like that during the day. And I just kind of start casually drinking some of these Miller Lights and just kind of tossing them in a trash can when I see it. And just getting very progressively, just kind of day drunk on a Sunday. And I don't even remember what I did the rest of the day. I don't remember. I remember I had these grand plans of hiking every day and doing all this stuff, and I didn't do any of that. I didn't do shit. But one thing I do remember is I do believe I went out, maybe drank somewhere else and came back. There was a coffee shop I really liked I would do some work at. But I'm getting day drunk. And then at some point, I get this really goofy email from Instagram. And I thought, well, that's fucking weird. And if I had been sober, I would have been like, oh, this is a scam. Don't open this email. But because I'm drunk, and it was specifically targeting my one very viral video at that point. I've had several since. But at that point, I had one viral video. It's the Subaru video that I posted, earlier that year. And it had been stolen. The video had been stolen multiple times. So I thought it was about that. And I was like, oh, shit. So I opened it up, and my Instagram got hacked. And I'm sitting there like, holy shit. Now, this isn't the biggest deal in the world in like the grand scheme of things, but as someone trying to promote shows, as someone making money on the road, trying to completely support themselves on the road, this was a huge fucking deal. And I only had like 8,000 followers. I'm only up to 13,000 now. It's not that many, but it took me so long just to get to 8,000. It's taken me so long just to get to 13,000. I was like, starting completely over sounds like an absolute fucking nightmare. So I'm like able to get a hold of Instagram. They lock my account, and I don't know what to fucking do. Like, I have a backup account that I kind of start, putting out there, and I'm like, all right, let me try and build. But I got to promote. I got a final headlining show in Kansas City. So far, none of my headlining shows have made any money for me. Most of them have been canceled. And I was like, I can't have one more cancel. I need just a little money just to get home to Nashville, And so I start freaking the fuck out, and I don't know what to do. And I'm just in the basement alone, like drinking the fucking warm Miller Lights by myself. And at some point, I definitely came up and told them, but I just don't remember. And so I make like a post on Facebook. And once again, my hometown of Hagerstown, Maryland comes through in the clutch. My friend Colin from my childhood, he reaches out and goes, hey, my wife works at Instagram. Give me your email. We'll figure this out. Now, it was not an instant fix. It took a long time. You have to get this stuff back from the hackers. You got to close it. You got to do a lot of stuff. You got to prove my identity. There's a lot to do. Eventually, I got my account back, which is very rare. Usually you have to completely start over. So thank you, Colin. You and your wife get tickets for life. Once I can afford to give away tickets all the time, tickets for life. But instant stress and a direct result from drinking. And I'm just, and now I'm bummed. And so you go back into the old habit of like, well, now I'm bummed. The only thing I can do now is drink. So that Sunday, I just get hammered. And then I have Thick Skin on Monday, which is, like I said, a show I really respect and a show I love doing. And because I kind of like went on this bender on Sunday, I sort of brought it into Monday as well. I didn't really check myself. I didn't really slow down. And so, I get up, I do whatever I'm doing, but eventually I'm drinking during the day again, probably around the afternoon. And, I get to Thick Skin, bunch of great comics on it, fantastic show, packed out. I had a good set. I'm super happy about the set. It wasn't as good as Friday. It wasn't as good as Thursday. It wasn't good as Saturday. But overall, it was a pretty good set. But something, just the energy's off in my mind because I'm like, my whole goal was to have this kind of, renaissance, this kind of comeback. And the real comeback needed to be without alcohol. And instead, I'm just kind of drunk at Comedy Works again, And I had a good set and I was happy about it. But it wasn't like the pop. It wasn't the bang I really wanted, I will say since then, I've done Thick Skin and I got that bang that I wanted. Like I did a joke that I have, and the whole roof blew off. So I've had that moment, but it's because I'm sober. All right, and it's frustrating, but I do genuinely believe that life is a giant puzzle, and even the more difficult pieces, once you find them, they have a necessary spot. And this time last year was that necessary spot to get me to where I am now. But in the moment, it kind of sucked. I didn't feel great. So the next day, I have off, so I'm going to go to Breckenridge, and I'm going to see one of my good childhood friends, Andy Lytle. Andy Lytle is a sound engineer for Billy Strings. I haven't seen him in probably a decade. We've been in touch for a long time. We catch up every once in a while, but he lives in Breckenridge, and fortunately, his calendar, my calendar lined up, and so now I have a chance to go see my friend, and this is where Chapter 1, the end of Chapter 15, but Part 1 is over for Denver, and Part 2 will begin next week with my friend Andy Lytle in Breckenridge. I definitely talked quicker than I normally do on this one, but, it's been a minute. I haven't spoken out loud all day, and I decided just to go straight into recording because I knew if I didn't do it, I wouldn't do it. And we gotta end Wilaker, It's got to come to an end because I'm in such a good place now that it's time to just close that book and start a new book. But I want to keep sharing it with you because I do appreciate everyone that's reached out and said that this in any way has affected you or got you thinking about your drinking or whatever it is. You reaching out is just as important as you listening to this story. And thank you for telling me, because it keeps me going and keeps me motivated to tell this story and all that kind of stuff. But I'll be posting all the comics that I mentioned. There's a few that Jared Chandler, I'm sorry I forgot to mention you. Jared is who runs Greeley. Great dude, very funny comic. And I'll have all those people listed on my Spotify. And this has been chapter 15. Like I said, we're coming up on the end. This could have been one whole chapter, but I wanted to spend a lot of time on Andy and my experience in Breckenridge and what that really meant to me and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it deserves its own chapter. But we're coming up at the end of the Experience Files tour, and then we're going to get into July. And July is where the wheels come off, but then eventually I get back on the wagon. All right. Thanks for listening. If you are in Los Angeles, come see me this Friday, June 19th at Dynasty Typewriter. I got Curtis Cook, Danny Dunn, and Hannah Rochline performing with me on Will Abels and Friends. It's 9:30 on Friday, June 19th. I have some other shows in LA, but that's the big one. That's the important one. I really need you to show up and support. And that I would just love to see every single one of you there, and I'll kiss you all in the mouth. And then the following week, I will be at the Den Theater on June 23rd. I'm taping for OnlyFans TV for LM AOF, which is their comedy show. I'm not showing whole, but I might if you ask me to. And then on Friday, June 26th, I will be at the Lost Church in San Francisco, again with my friend Hannah Rochline. We're co-headlining. It's going to be fantastic. These next 2 weeks are, I'm not going to say the most important in my career because that's just not true, but they're very big, and they're probably the biggest 2 weeks I've had this year, and I'm very excited. And I am lining up the fall, the end of the summer. We're getting back out there, and a lot of the places and clubs I've mentioned in this podcast, they're coming back into play, and we're getting out there and we're traveling again, and I'll be sharing those dates with you soon. Take us away, Kenny.
Left home, gone coast to coast in a hybrid car with a bag of clothes. Back on the wagon, back on the road. Would you have my back when I'm all alone? On a wing and a prayer, all out of favors. Hope to get $1 and a smile out of stranger. As the story is told and the plot unfolds, we laugh not to cry, but it's not a joke. No, it's not a joke. It's not a joke.